Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining Greening Corporate Grounds for Discover Your Sustainable Corporate Landscape, a webinar by Credit Valley Conservation and in conjunction with the City of Mississauga. My name is Melissa Creasy, and I will be hosting today's webinar, which will be presented by Deborah Kenley, our Senior Coordinator for the Greening Corporate Grounds program. Deborah is an associate member of the Ontario Association of Landscape Architects and has over 10 years of experience designing sustainable landscapes for businesses. She will introduce you to environmentally responsible landscaping that can help you create healthy, beautiful spaces on corporate property. First, she will talk about the impacts of conventional landscaping on urban environments and then provide you with a series of sustainable solutions. Credit Valley Conservation, or CVC, is a community-based environmental organization dedicated to protecting, restoring, and managing the natural resources of the Credit River watershed. Established by the provincial government in 1954, CVC is one of 36 conservation authorities in Ontario. As the primary scientific authority for the watershed, CVC works in partnership with municipal governments, schools, businesses, and community organizations to deliver locally based programs such as Greening Corporate Grounds that help businesses and institutions in the Credit River watershed plan for and implement sustainable landscaping projects on their property. I will hand it over to Deborah to start the webinar.
Thanks, Melissa, and hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today. I'd like to start the webinar with a little bit about conventional landscaping. Until recently, our approach to landscaping has been about managing nature, maintaining perfect lawns, neat beds of disposable annual flowers, and great infrastructure like asphalt paving that lets water run off instead of infiltrate and that overloads our municipal storm sewers. But these days we're learning to do things differently because we know that conventional landscaping practices can do more harm than good. And we also need more sustainable solutions to help mitigate against climate change and also to support wildlife that's in decline. So how did we go from working with nature to against it? The Turfgrass Lawn tells much of the story. The use of lawns as a status symbol was common in European society as early as the 17th century. And then it was embraced by America in colonial times. A beautifully manicured lawn in Europe meant that you had wealth and staff that could maintain it. In America, it was sold as an easy way for the business class to keep decorated grounds when they had large homes, but they had no staff to really maintain it. It symbolized wealth, neighborliness, and ushered in a neat and tidy aesthetic movement as the suburbs with their adjacent commercial parks took hold. In this image of a commercial property in Brampton, you can see how a fine lawn and large trees continue to define the corporate aesthetic. But we know today lawns are a beast of burden whose maintenance is costly and can be enforced by municipal property standards. Fortunately, municipalities are becoming more accepting of sustainable landscaping practices such as no-mow zones to offset the environmental effects and high costs of mowers, gas, water, and fertilizers. And also, I'm sure you've experienced this, but geese can be a problem on corporate properties because they love turf grass. They will nest in parking islands and they can be aggressive. So if you don't want geese, you can get your company to reduce the amount of lawn that it manages. But what are the sustainable landscaping options for corporate properties? The alternatives can seem daunting and they can also be perceived as messy. A good place to start is with biodiversity. Businesses recognize that diversity in the workplace supports a healthy company culture and fosters innovation. Similarly, diversity in nature helps ecosystems thrive, adapt, and recover from disruption. Conventional urban landscaping often prioritizes aesthetic unity over biodiversity. An example of this is planting rows of a single species of tree. Dutch elm disease and emerald ash borer were both catastrophic to our urban landscape because ash and elm were frequently planted on corporate properties and streets. But really, we can't talk about sustainable landscaping without mentioning the effects that climate change has on our environment. From hotter summers to wetter winters, we need to redesign our landscapes to include green, or what we call nature-based infrastructure, to manage stormwater and survive periods of drought. We need plants to cool our cities and clean our air. And among the advantages that sustainable landscaping has over conventional landscaping is making properties more resilient to climate change by working with nature, not against it. So if you're looking to make your existing landscape more resilient, plant native species. Native plants, sometimes called indigenous or endemic, grew here before European settlement about 400 years ago, and they have evolved with native wildlife to create healthy ecosystems. At CVC, we recommend plants that are native within our watershed or sometimes just beyond it. You can also plant good host trees. Trees and shrubs can be included on almost any corporate property, but choosing plants that provide food and shelter for birds and beneficial insects is central to healthy habitat that is in balance. Fortunately, the plants that are the best food hosts, like oaks, cherries, and maples, are also really well suited for harsher urban environments. Like planting good host plants for native wildlife, removing invasive species is an important part of sustainable landscaping management plan. Invasive species can dominate the landscape and they don't support local wildlife. We can help you learn to identify and manage invasive species on your property. I mentioned good host trees for caterpillars. If you're worried about inviting caterpillars to your property, there's really no need. Birds like the song sparrow rely on soft-bodied insects like caterpillars to rear their young. A single pair of black-capped chickadees must find between 4,000 and 6,000 caterpillars to rear just one clutch of birds. One other thing you can do to help birds is make your windows visible to them. Birds can't see glass, and many companies we work with report high numbers of strikes. Strategically applied window film can significantly reduce the number of fatalities, and it's also really easy to apply. And why is this all important? Well, since 1970, we have lost 2.9 billion birds, and we need to start creating habitat in our urban environments to help their survival. So how do we go about building resilient, biodiverse landscapes when our urban environments come with many unique challenges, like planting beds that sit on underground parking structures, to small islands of grass between, dry vials and compacted nutrient-poor soils? Many native plants are adapted to period of drought and live in tougher soil conditions and can be better suited than plants from other countries that we often see on corporate properties. I'd like to show you some small and large scale examples of projects we have completed for members, like this colorful native woodland garden in a raised planter on a parking lot deck in downtown Mississauga. It shows that small spaces can be great hosts to wildlife and provide visual interest for visitors. This is another example of a small scale project with Fielding Environmental. They were an early adopter of the Greening Corporate Grounds program who wanted to create an outdoor space for employees to enjoy. The challenge was that the only green space they had very compacted soils and was also facing a busy stretch of road. The solution was to plant salt and compaction-tolerant native trees, shrubs, and wildflowers to create a space that provides privacy, habitat, and interest. So prior to European settlement, Southern Ontario used to have a lot of tall grass prairies. Prairie plants are great for larger properties with lots of open space. They are drought and fire tolerant, and their roots can extend 2 to 4 meters, helping to stabilize soil, absorbing stormwater, and they provide excellent habitat for wildlife. Consider a no-mow zone that lets turfgrass grow and can be seeded or interplanted with prairie wildflowers. This project in the Sheridan Technology Park gets mowed every 2 years to help suppress weeds and reduce shrub growth. Alternatively, if you would like to keep some grass on your property, low maintenance grass mixes are now readily available and are typically a blend of fescue grasses that are drought tolerant and grow to about 15 centimeters, requiring less or no mowing. Another large-scale project that we worked on is at Mitutoyo Canada. They have a very large property in Meadowvale, Mississauga, and it was essentially a blank slate ripe for naturalization. We were contacted by their green team who was eager to create an outdoor space for recreation. But more importantly, they wanted to transform the property so that it would reflect their sustainable mandate. We conducted a design charrette with the green team, and they came up with a series of interventions from creating habitat to recreation. We put together a concept plan that incorporated their need for recreational space and included large-scale restoration projects to reduce the overall project costs. Landowners with large-scale projects can take advantage of CVC's subsidized tree planting program. Mitutoyo installed 419 trees with the help from CVC. They also installed a prairie meadow. Seeding large-scale projects is more economical and requires less watering during the establishment phase than potted stock. It typically takes 3 years for a seeded project like the prairie at Mitutoyo to establish. However, you can see results early on, like the flowers in this image, that appeared in the first year that were already attracting pollinators. And now I'd like to turn your attention to the importance of stormwater management on your property and how green infrastructure can help you manage it. Green infrastructure is natural vegetated systems like woodlots and wetlands and technologies like green roofs. It can protect your property against damage from flooding and heat while creating beautiful outdoor spaces for staff and visitors to enjoy. We recommend including green infrastructure solutions as part of your long-term planning and make the transition from gray to green over time. As mentioned, climate change brings hotter and wetter weather, and with that, reducing heat island effect and managing stormwater on your property is more important than ever as insurance companies, investors, and stakeholders look for companies to prove that they are resilient to climate change. Low-impact development technologies like permeable paving and bioretention cells hold back water during rain events to prevent overloading the storm sewer. Think about including LED technologies as an option for the next time you resurface your parking lot. In 2018, CVC partnered with the City of Mississauga to help landowners adopt stormwater management technologies on their property that reduce the amount of stormwater entering the storm sewer during a rain event. Businesses that do so may qualify for a credit on their stormwater charge through the Stormwater Credit Program. To find out more about the program, you can visit Stormwater Charge CA. They also have an estimator there if you're not sure what your charge is. Part of a sustainable landscaping plan is having a pollution prevention plan. The goal of pollution prevention is to stop pollutants from coming into contact with water in the first place. Preventing pollution by implementing strategies like reducing salt and properly storing chemicals is an easy way to protect the environment and your property. Municipalities and agencies can impose fines for illegal discharges, dumping, spills, and excessive sediment releases to surface water, groundwater sources, or even to a municipal sewer. Like most municipalities, the City of Mississauga has a dedicated coordinator responsible for upholding the storm sewer bylaw. For information about how the bylaw affects businesses in Mississauga, contact Environmental Services by email or by calling 311. So now I'd like to provide you with a little more information about the Greening Corporate Grounds program. Greening Corporate Grounds is a member-based program that offers sustainable landscaping consultation and support services to businesses and institutions within the Credit River watershed. We provide landowners with a sustainable landscaping plan for their property and help move them from concept to implementation. We work with properties of any size, and the plan is unique, and we want it to reflect their vision, but also their bottom line. We conduct site assessments and consult with management and green teams to provide a comprehensive report and a series of fact sheets about the practices that we recommend for each area of the property. And we also keep businesses and the community up to date on sustainable landscaping, best management practices, and also events through our Green Brief newsletter. We also have a fantastic series of plant lists that are available on our website for download or purchase. And we also provide ongoing educational opportunities such as planting events, workshops, and guided walks for staff or volunteers so that they can learn about native plants and wildlife and how to maintain their projects once installed. Feel free to connect with us to find out more about how we can help you landscape more sustainably and to get involved with the Greening Corporate Grounds program. I'd like to thank you for attending today, and now I will turn it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Deborah, for such a fantastic presentation. We do have a couple questions here, but please feel free to add any more questions to that Q&A box, and we will try to get to them. So the first one, and it had to do with those caterpillars that you talked about, and probably the most hated caterpillar that we have around here. Somebody is asking about what to do about gypsy moths that are currently decimating a lot of the oak trees throughout Mississauga.
Yeah, so Melissa, you may actually be able to assist in this one, but what I do know is that the city of Mississauga, like many municipalities, they do spray for gypsy moths. That can be a bit of a challenge because it doesn't just target the gypsy moths. There are other caterpillars that it also targets. And in High Park, which is close to where I live in Toronto, they've been trying another method. And what they do is I've seen sort of these plastic bands around the base of the trees with some cotton balls. And that is, Melissa, perhaps you know exactly what that is, but I believe that that is supposed to control the gypsy moths because they go up and down the trees throughout the day, correct?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know a lot of those bands, it helps kind of trap them as they go up and down, and then they can be disposed of at that point.
And I do know if you do want to know when your municipality is actually spraying, you can register for alerts on their website.
Great. And the only thing I'll add to that is one of the issues with gypsy moths is it is one of our kind of invasive species. So it's just one of those kind of issues that when we start introducing species, that it does cause a lot of big issues. So the caterpillars that we're looking at hosting don't do that kind of damage. Most moths and butterfly only lay a few eggs kind of at a time, so it doesn't create that kind of huge, massive amount of damage. So the next question, and again, please add any other questions to the Q&A if you have them. Somebody was just wondering if they need contractors to install these projects, or can they do them on their own?
It can be both. So some of the projects, such as planting a native garden in an existing flower bed, or even creating like a no-mow zone and interplanting with either potted stock or throwing some seeds on there. Typically, you can do that through an event with staff or yeah, but some of the bigger projects, certainly when it comes to stormwater management projects, those require a lot of planning and time, and also there's heavy duty construction involved in that. So it's a combination, and it all depends on your resources and what your needs are. But if you do want more information, I can certainly provide more information depending on your circumstances. So feel free to get in touch.
Great, thanks. And somebody was wondering about their landscapers. Like, do they need to train their landscapers to be able to deal with this kind of different type of landscape?
Yeah, so sustainable landscaping is a little bit different from conventional landscaping. And we're finding that even though a lot of the contractors that we're working with are really enthusiastic and great, they are trained more conventionally. So we do encourage our members to allow us to work with them and to introduce them to the native plants that we're using, and also to not mow down or pull out some of the species that we're planting. So it's always good to to try and involve the staff. Some companies will actually keep our projects separate from the regular maintenance and have the green team maintain it throughout the season. It provides staff an opportunity to get outside, and typically it's a little more successful because everybody is invested and they know exactly what they're doing, and we'll also provide staff with some training on how to best maintain the project.
Okay, perfect. So I have one question left here, unless anyone else in the next minute or two does have any other questions, just post it in that Q&A box. Someone was just wondering, they don't have a big budget to be able to spend on these types of projects. Is there still things that they can do?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, a big, you know, anything from pollution prevention to planting even just a small flower bed with, with pollinator plants is really great. There are lots of native plant nurseries. You can use our plant list as a guide. You're also welcome to join the program. We work with companies of any size within the Credit River watershed. So we're not exclusive. And generally, just being a supporter of environmental practices within your business, even reading our newsletter and sharing it with other people is a great way to get involved. So small actions count as well.
Okay, fantastic. So that is all the questions that we have. And if you do come up with any other questions, feel free to reach out to us afterwards. So Deborah, did you want to say any last words before we finish up here?
Just thank you, everyone, and feel free to check out the program online or get in touch with us for more information about how you can get involved. And have a great day.